everybody, and welcome to Truth Teller Tales. I'm Ellen, and I'm just really dedicated to interviewing those people that could see the truth and then wanted to share the truth to others during this most incredible time in our history. I do feel like that, you know, folks like this are going to be studied for generations. And tonight I have just a lovely woman who she writes beautifully and she does substacks where she shows how the fifth generation warfare is led spiritually, and she does it in such a beautiful way, and I'm just super excited to have her with me. Audrey Hester, a light in the matrix, how are you?
Hi, I've never been better. I'm so excited for
Yay.
this.
Well, I am too, because I just can't wait to hear your story. You're such a joy on the different shows that I've seen you on, but I also just love your Substacks. And the last one you wrote was just I will have it in my the details and stuff because it's so well done. And
Oh,
seen you talk about it, but I wanted to go back and reread it. And I wanted to
yeah.
write Wheat and Tares, a parable for our time. I mean, it's beautifully written, and just kind of share what you're doing now and about your Substacks and everything.
Sure. Well, again, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's so lovely to get, just these kind of surprise invitations. You never know what God has planned for you, right? So I try not to
Yeah.
plan too far ahead of my life on what I want to do because, it always gets hijacked, right? And so
Yeah.
every day I'm like, what do you got for me today, God? Who needs to
Yeah.
hear from you? What do you want them to know? And so anytime I get like a random invite like this, I'm just like, oh, all right, God, I see what's next, right? And then
Yes.
kind of proceed with whatever it is that, what that looks like. So again, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
So right now, I'm just day by day, honestly. I have a daytime, full-time my matrix job, right, where I sit at this desk and punch the buttons to make the corporate world go round,
Hmm.
until God moves me out of that. That's where I am for now. But outside of that job is what I consider my real job, right? So my mission, where God has sent me out to tell people what he wants them to know, which is the truth with a capital T. And
Hmm.
that's real new for me. When I say new, it's been well, like 4.5 years now. And I don't know. I've Substack. I started a Substack a couple of years ago when I had an encounter with God, but it kind of paused because I couldn't share my story yet because it impacted other family members and all of that, and they were very uncomfortable with me sharing information and because it impacted them. So that was kind of a bummer, right? Because I was ready to
Hmm.
talk. So instead, I've kind of found alternative ways to kind of share my message. And one of those is, becoming more active on X. It wasn't until last fall that I became more of a creator versus a consumer because I
Hmm.
had been just consuming like the rest of us. And
Hmm.
God said, no, 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 I need you to, like, I gave you this experience for a reason and a purpose. So I need you to go out and you do that. And so
Right.
I had to kind of switch postures a little bit. And I stopped to just reposting and, liking stuff because I was really in my own silo anyway, right?
Hmm.
Anything I reposted, everyone in my little circle already saw that. So I
Hmm.
wasn't really adding any value, right? And I
Yeah.
only had like a handful of, people following my account. And so I'm like, what? Like, I need to be creating, right? And God said, yeah. So then I started to create instead. And so I've been having fun doing that and got the Substack up and going. And I don't post as often as I would like because my matrix job kind of monopolizes a lot. And I got a kiddo in sports and life, the matrix kind of rules me a little bit more than I would like for it to. But I have so many projects in Substack that are in draft that I'll
Hmm.
start and then I'll tweak it. And then I'm like, not yet. Right. I just kind of wait for God to be like, yeah, now. And
Right.
so a lot of times I'll have pieces that are almost ready to go. And then I'll kind of put like the final touches on it. And God will be like, yeah, it's time to send that one. Like the wheat and tears one, that was actually sitting in draft for a few weeks before I sent that one out. So
That one is just has so many parts to it, and I want people to read it, but, you talk about the green pill and the I mean,
yeah.
it I just love it, so just kinda give a brief summary, and then I will encourage people to read it because it's just so well done.
Sure. So what got me started with Substack this time is I launched the green pill, is which I know that we're all familiar with the red pill, the black pill, all pills, right, from the movie The Matrix, and even the white pill. But it wasn't until I watched a clip of Alex Jones and Alex Stein, where God had planted a seed in Alex Jones to talk about this green pill, and I had never heard of the green pill, and I was like, I've heard of all these others. What is this green pill? So I re-listened to, because Alex Jones is a fast talker, right? So I re-listened to what he
Mhm.
said multiple times, and it just really stuck with me because it said it represented the evergreen spirit of humanity. And I was like, okay, I like that. So what else does that mean? Right. So then there I go down the rabbit hole of what does green mean just in the world? What does green mean in the Bible? What does green mean spiritually? What does, and how does all that kind of tie in? And I found a lot out there. And ultimately, it was God kind of revealed that, yeah, the green pill represents the truth with a capital T, versus the red pill is a lowercase t, worldly truth, which is very important too. You have to
Interesting.
understand how the world works really before you can kind of understand just how deceptive the world is and how it
Mhm.
is the world.
Yeah,
It's not the ultimate truth. Jesus says, what? My kingdom is not of this world. Right.
right.
And so I was like, okay, that makes the red pill fun again for me, because I was a little burned out on the red pill.
Yeah,
Because once you kind of know it, you're like, okay, yeah, the world's corrupt. Okay,
right.
now what? Right. And then
Yep,
so along that way, God also revealed another role for me, which was a medic. We have our digital soldiers
right,
that are out there fighting on the front lines, taking all the slings and arrows. They fight censorship, they fight, shadow ban, just the trolls. If you were like a full time election denier or a J6er, there's all these kind of events that have happened, and just the label conspiracy theorist, right?
right.
There's all
Yeah,
these like labels and spiritual and emotional wounds that our
mhm,
digital soldiers endure, which is very different in 5G warfare compared to physical warfare, right? But
right.
they're soldiers and they get wounded, and God's like, yeah, they're wounded, and I need medics just like I need medics in the physical world, in physical war. So that's kind of what started the whole green pill series of Substack, and to help people understand, like you kind of mentioned in the intro, like tying 5G warfare into how that actually applies to our spiritual lives, because that's the ultimate war we're in, right? It's a spiritual
Yes.
battle, and
Yes.
it's a war for our hearts and our souls. And the red pill, while it's important, it's a distraction away from that. The
Yep.
enemy wants us in that, I call it the red pill containment op. The enemy wants us
Yeah,
talking about worldly stuff, debating
right.
and arguing and sharing perspectives, when God's over there going, hey, I'm over here. Like, I can help you with that, you know? And
Yes.
so that was kind of the background of how the green pill series started. And then I just started writing, and I was like, oh, and this and this, and God just kept revealing things to kind of tie it all together to help people kind of see, are they a medic? Do they need a medic? Are they both? And so that's kind of the
Oh,
background.
I love that so much, and the fact, and you've said this before, but it really just sunk into me now, that the red pill is important, but it's the little t, and you're right, it is just the everyday earthly stuff that we've been
Yeah.
lied to about. But you need the green pill in order to understand it and digest it in the bigger picture.
Yeah, it's the Holy Spirit view.
Yeah,
It's being able to discern through it. And a lot of people I know that they just kind of write spiritual takes off. They're like, yeah, yeah, God wins. Yeah, yeah. Okay, but did you see this post today about blah blah blah? And I'm like, gosh, you would understand that post way more if you
Yep.
supplemented your red pill with the green pill. And
Yes.
that's ultimately what we're called to do, right?
Right.
Is to help people awaken to the real truth. The again, I am so red pilled, but I got so burned out, and I understand the importance of red pill, and I get it, and all that. But and it all ties to, as you know, the movie The Matrix. But that just gives you the two choices, red or blue,
Right.
and
Exactly. It
that's
misses
not
the
our
other.
choices.
No, and I wanna go into this more at the end because I wanna hear your
Yeah.
life, but, because you've touched on it, don't you think, because of the people that I have interviewed, um, have found a stronger spirituality in their whole quest, don't you think that people who can see the truth, who are lighthouses around the world, are, can dive into the pretty dark stuff that we've been
Yeah.
lied to about, but also has that armor of God and that shield
Yeah.
so that so that we are able to, because I think the people who don't see it right now, if they don't have that connection, they wouldn't be able to handle it. What are your thoughts about that?
No, same. You got to be equipped, right? Like you can't go onto the battlefield unequipped. It's just like if you imagine in a physical war, you wouldn't just walk out into a battlefield without your equipment. You
Yeah.
got to have your bulletproof vest, you got to have your
Yep.
gun, you got to have all your stuff, you got to have your goggles on, your helmet, you got to have all the same pieces so that when the bullets come, the bombs come, the infiltrators, whatever, you're prepared. It's the same thing. The spiritual preparation is actually the real preparation. Right? The
Yes.
kingdom is the truth, is what we actually need to be prepared for, so that when you're censored, when a troll comes, when somebody asks you a question about something, you can expand your thinking and recognize, okay, everything in the physical world is indeed fake, right? It's temporary, it's not real.
Right.
if it can
Right.
be if it can be vaporized, burned, returned to ashes, a physical thing, it can go away. So therefore
Yep.
anything physical is really just temporary.
That's right.
And if you're equipped spiritually, now you're protected. Now you can go and have those dark conversations. Now you can like discern through emotions and reactions and be like, I understand you feel betrayed. However, here's what's actually kind of happening below the surface. Right? I know you feel like that person is mean, or that person has an ego, or that person is whatever, but here's what's maybe going on underneath that you can't see because it's in the spiritual realm.
Yeah. And most people, to your point though, those physical things, that's the only thing they can grasp onto because they can see it. I can't
Yes,
see what you're talking
it's
about. And
and
that's
it's tangible
that
to them.
it's tangible and so they
Yeah.
can see it. But what we've been able to do is take that leap of faith,
Yeah.
right? That I think is coming for everybody. I mean,
It's the eyes to see, right?
yeah.
Like, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I think it's to no one's fault, right? But when people
Right.
say, well, I got eyes to see, and I'm like, well, we all technically were born with physical eyes to see. It's nothing
Yeah.
earth shattering, right? To say that, but it's because God hasn't revealed to them yet, right?
Yep.
And so they think they only know what they know. It's kind of like I think about when I was a kid or growing up as a young adult. You go through life and you learn things by your different experiences and challenges and all of that, and you think you got it all figured out, right? You're an adult, you're like, I know things, I know because of this, I know. But you only know what you currently know. you don't
Yeah.
know you don't know all the things that you don't know yet. I know that
That's right.
sounds illogical in a way, but it's the truth. But and then as more truth is revealed, you're like, oh, right. And then you're able to look back and go, yeah, I didn't know anything then.
It's that way. It's the more the more you know you don't know.
Yep. And it never ends. You cannot know it all.
Yeah.
But some
Yes.
people get in that trap where the enemy has them convinced that they know it all.
Yes.
So then ego, pride develops, and then there's no fruit.
That's right. That's right. Oh my goodness. We could talk about this forever, but that's
I
just so
know.
true. So true. So let's just talk about you and
Yeah.
your life, because what I've found too is a lot of the folks that watch these interviews, it brings them so much closer to the movement and all of you because they always find so many similarities in
Yeah.
all your stories, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it happened to her too. It happened
Mhm.
to him too." And so it has been, I know it's going to be studied for generations, but it's a healing thing for people now too,
Yes.
which has been lovely. So, take us back to the beginning, um, of Audrey, and so at where you were born, your
Yeah.
childhood, just start us out.
Yeah, so let's see. In the beginning, right? So, I was born in a little small town here in Texas, North Texas, a little small population of like 1,400, little small, white, predominantly white German Catholic community. My
Mhm.
dad had roots there, but my mom did not. So, growing up, I looked a little different than a lot of the kids in my class. Everybody that I grew up with looked like you, blonde hair, blue eyed, German, light
Mhm.
skin. And I did not, since I didn't really fit in. Me and my siblings didn't really fit in. So, like most kids, I grew up with like some bullying, some, being made fun of. My mom was of Hispanic mixed origin. And so, we got called all the names, Beaner and wetback, and did you swim here? Typical
Oh.
kid type bullying, but like
Yeah,
even at a young age, it didn't. I mean, it bothered me, but it didn't like. I don't know. It just kind of empowered me more when I think back. Like God knew, right? And so He always made me a little bit of a rebel. And
mhm,
thankfully, He had surrounded me with a few true friends. And I think that was key, right? Of having just a couple of friends that I could always
right,
count on. So I never like let it get to me where I, became like depressed or, anything like that, right? And then I was pretty athletic, so I got into sports at a young age, and I think that helped me because that kind of helped me prove my worth. Because when
right,
your identity is questioned at a young age, like many kids' identity is, if you whatever the trauma is, abandonment, abuse, neglect, any of these kind of
mhm,
childhood wounds questions your identity and your worth. And
right,
so that's what had happened to me. Of course I can only say that looking back, right? At the time
right.
I had, at the time I'm just like, wow, what's going on in my life? So I was
Yeah.
abandoned at a young age. My mom left me and my siblings, and I was just kind of winging it all my life. Started working
So
full time.
so that's a big thing
Yeah.
that you just said. So
Yeah.
what happened there? How many siblings do you have, by the way?
Sure. I have three siblings. I have an older brother who's 2 years older, and I have two younger sisters that are, 9 and 11 years younger than me.
Oh, wow. So
So,
when that's a huge event, and so,
yes.
I mean, so what happened? What happened?
Sure. So my parents, ever since I can remember, didn't get along, right? And so I don't, as a kid, I don't remember them ever. That's my only memory as a kid is my parents fighting.
Mhm,
And once I got to almost junior high, my mom, I was at that age where you're too young to like stay by yourself, but not quite old enough to
mhm,
go and do your own thing.
mhm,
So I would have to go with my mom places. And I tell you, I don't remember a time that I ever liked my mom because
mhm.
just growing up, I associated my teasing that I received because of her,
Right.
right? I wanted to look like my dad. I wanted to have blonde hair, blue eyes, and light skin so that I could fit in. So I kind of
Mhm.
blamed my mom, even though obviously it wasn't her fault that
Yeah,
she was born the way she was, but as a kid
yeah,
you don't know that, right? And so
right.
I never liked her, and then they're fighting all the time, and I would have to go with her places, and she would go to, like, she was basically cheating on my dad because we would go to like somebody's house and I would just wait in the car for her, and she would be gone for a little while, and I would just sit in the car and read Nancy Drew books. Like I just remember reading a lot of Nancy Drew books, and then she would come out. But I was so young, I didn't really understand what was happening.
Mhm.
Like I was like
Mhm.
10, 11 years old. So it didn't completely register right until I got older. And
Mhm.
I would overhear her and my aunt, which was her sister in law, talk about a secret vacation they were going on. And she would gradually put clothes in the car, a pair of pants, a t-shirt, whatever in the trunk. And I would be like, what are you doing? Why are you putting clothes in the car? And she'd say, well, it's a surprise vacation. Don't tell your dad. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Again, 10, 11 years old. What do I know? And then the
Right.
day came where we were at school and she didn't pick us up from school, which wasn't completely uncommon. She would work late sometimes. And so that wasn't completely weird or anything. And we would just walk to my grandparents' house and then she would get off work and come get us. So it was just kind of felt normal. And then we get to my grandparents and she never comes. And then my dad got off work later. He came. He's like, where's your mom? We're like, I don't know. Guess she's at work. We don't know. Right. So they call my mom's job and they're like, no, she left early this morning. She went home sick. I remember I was like, so then where is she? There's no cell phones back then. Right.
Yeah.
So then everybody's like wondering where mom is. And all of a sudden it hits me. I'm like, oh, the secret vacation. Right. And so I tell my brother, I'm like, I think I know where mom is. I said, I think she went to Michigan with Aunt Wanda. And he was like, well, how do you know this? And why didn't you tell anybody? And, now it's all my fault because I knew and
Yeah.
I didn't tell anybody. And I'm like, because y'all would do this. Y'all would be mad at me. Right. So, so then sure enough, they get a hold of my mom and they find out that she had indeed left. And she was like, I want a divorce and I want out and all this stuff. And they're like, well, you got to come back to Texas to get a divorce, right? So she was gone for a little while. She comes back, but now she's living in like some crappy apartment, and we're forced to go visit. The whole like separation stuff. And now I
Mhm.
really,
Yeah.
I already didn't like her. Didn't like that she put me in that position, and
Right.
then now I find out that like she legit abandoned. Like who abandons her 4
Yeah.
kids, right? Had so
Yeah.
much resentment, so much
Yeah.
hatred. And, I carried that for years, right?
Mhm.
Because then, of course, they ended up kind of trying to get back together. Then I was mad at my dad. I was like, how could you like forgive her? But then that doesn't work out. And they end up getting divorced anyway a few years later. And I was like, finally, good, right? Peace around the house. No more yelling. But of course, that kind of all did a number on me, right? Because
Yes.
I was then the kind of the caretaker of my two little sisters. So now I have even more resentment because now
Right.
I have to be the mom and I'm here 11, 12 years old now trying to take care of my little sisters.
Yeah.
So when I hit 16, I was like, I'm getting a job and I'm out of here because this is for the birds, right?
Yep.
But, carrying all that trauma, I
Mhm.
started dating at a really young age because again, it was all about the worthiness that I felt. And if I could
Mhm.
find a guy that saw me as worthy, then I thought that would help me. But I didn't know, like we talked about, I didn't know. I just was like, I'm a rebel and I can do this on my own, right? Never
Yeah.
knew God. God was not part of my life. I thought I was doing it all on my own, right? Started working full time at 16, was basically living on my own, bouncing back and forth between boyfriends' houses or friends' houses until I graduated. And then I, really get deep into the corporate world and, start kind of moving up that way. And all my work experience got me really good jobs that I shouldn't have actually been eligible for because most of them were degree required. But
Mhm.
I stopped college. I tried it. It was not for me. And I was mad that I was having to pay because I was making my own money. So I didn't qualify for deferred loans. And I'm like, this
Oh,
is so
wow.
backwards. It was so backwards. And I didn't want to
Yeah.
go into debt. And so then there I was in the corporate world, climbing the ladder, again, trying to prove my worthiness, right? If
Right.
I can get a good job, then I can get more money. I can buy a nice house, nice car, go on vacations. Again, you're just chasing that. And it became like performance driven, right? Because again, never
Mhm.
knew God, I thought I did it all on my own.
Mhm.
So I mean, there's so much like there. There was an abortion when I was around uh, like 18, right out of high school. I was dating an older guy and got pregnant. And I was like, I knew the guy was not a good guy. It was a very tumultuous and toxic relationship. I had a couple friends that had had babies really young, out of wedlock and stuff. And then I had a few friends that had an abortion. And so whenever I go to reconcile and compare, I was like, abortion's for me, right? I
Right.
again
Mhm.
didn't know what I didn't
Mhm.
know. And they
Right.
sure as heck don't tell you when you go to Planned Parenthood about any of the trauma that can cause later in your life, right?
Yeah.
So it was very early on, and they actually said I was not far enough along to even have an abortion because that was back before any kind of like quick fix, right?
Mhm.
Plan B or whatever it is they have now. And so I had to wait until I was 8 weeks pregnant because, that's why they don't see you. A gynecologist won't see you until you're at least 8 weeks because that's when it's considered
Mhm.
like viable or whatever. So I had to go like 2 weeks knowing that I was going to have an abortion. And so I remember that kind of messing with me a little bit, but not enough to
Yep.
like deter me from it. I had no idea.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you have no idea what you're signing up for at 18 years old. You just know that I knew that I couldn't be with that guy. And I knew I
Right.
didn't have the means. I didn't have a support system. I was like,
Mhm.
I can't do this. Right.
Right.
So, so back into work, I finally get rid of the guy, move on. And it was just all about work at that point. I got the feel
Mhm.
of money at a young age. And that to me felt like success. And I had control. So I thought, right?
Mhm. Right.
um,
Yes.
but that I ended up meeting my now husband at work because that's all I ever did was work. Met him, had Tucker in 2013. Whenever I had a baby, God was starting to already work on. I mean, he was working on me since before time or whatever. But like, I can look back now and be like, okay, when I had a baby, that changed my priorities on life. It wasn't about money anymore. I wanted to be the mom that I never had. And,
Mhm.
and that and that meant less work. That meant putting my kid first instead of work. So I started to take on jobs that were less responsibilities. Right?
Yes.
Instead of climbing the ladder, I started coming back down the ladder,
Mhm.
making enough money and all of that, but less power positions, right? I just wanted to kind of be an
Right.
individual contributor, kind of do my thing and still have time um, with my child. And there's also
And
a
before
crazy, go ahead.
yeah, no, you're about to say a crazy story.
So climbing that corporate ladder, I moved to Chicago for a job. And while I was in Chicago, a lady, a neighbor, crashed into my house.
What?
Yeah. So it was one night I was watching Grey's Anatomy on the couch. I'll never forget. And I hear a crash. Like it sounded like a garage door had lost suspension. If you can kind of imagine what that sound would be like. And I was like, what was that? And I get up to look out the window and I lived in a community of townhomes, where the townhomes are like
Yep.
fourplexes, that kind of shared walls. And I looked across the street and this lady had driven into her own garage, like too far. Like she drove into her garage and hit that wall. And I was like, is that lady drunk? What is happening? I'm watching. And then she puts it in reverse and starts coming towards my condo and my
Oh,
townhome. And I'm like, oh
man.
my gosh. And I literally dove over a recliner. To this day. It was all God. Like I didn't know it was God then, right? But now I can look back and see. And there was an entire Nissan Altima parked inside my living room.
Oh my
I dove out of the way of this car, and then I'm like, the little piece of
wow.
linoleum, the little piece of linoleum at the front door of like a condo.
Yeah.
I landed in that little rectangle, and I was like, "There's a car in my house." And then she puts it
Oh
in
my
drive, and she goes back out, and she crashes into the house across the street. And I was like,
wow.
breeze all fallen, the house like it's a wreck. And I walk outside of the hole that's now in my house because I need to find out where she's going. I never had to run from a moving car before, right? And so I was like, where is she? I'm like, okay, there she is. And I look
Yeah.
down and I'm wearing just a bra and pajama bottoms. And I'm like, oh, so I run back upstairs, put on a random t-shirt, come back downstairs, and now all the neighbors are out. And I was like, there's a car in my house. Like I was in shock. All I would say was there was a car in my house. And I tried to retrieve my Razor cell phone. I don't know if you remember the Motorola Razor cell phones. A
Mhm.
neighbor found it, and it was like in two pieces. I'm like trying to put it back together, and they're like, "Lady, that's phone is toast," because I needed to call somebody, right? I'm like,
Right.
what do I do, right? And so my one friend that I moved to Chicago with was my boss. Um, she was happened to be in Texas, and she's like, "Are you drunk?" And I'm like, no, there was a car in my house, but I sound like a drunk person, right? Crazy, crazy story. I ended up having to move in with my boss. Her name is Janet Godby, Godby.
Oh
She's
my
a huge
gosh.
she's a huge part of my testimony and story, but she was an amazing boss. And I moved in with her while my house was like being either condemned or repaired. It was like in question, right? Because it was structurally unsound. Didn't sleep for like 3 days. My friends convinced me to finally go to the doctor, because again, I'm powering through. I don't need people,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yes.
And got put on Ambien, which I don't know how familiar you are with the pharmaceutical Ambien, a sleeping drug. It's not good.
Mm,
And yeah, got addicted to sleeping pills for a couple of years. so, so
understandable.
yeah, so we got some abandonment, we got an abortion, we got toxic relationships, we got PTSD because they diagnosed me with PTSD. We got some fertility issues when I tried to have my son. I got fired from USAA last summer for sharing the gospel at work. Um,
What?
yeah, I got stories for days. So
Oh my god. Well, before you go there, I have to hear, so the lady that ran into your house, did they find her? Did she get in
yeah,
trouble?
she was older, not too, I mean, she had a high school kid. She was Indian. And what had happened is she had pulled into her garage like halfway to let her son get out of the car because he had like a big lacrosse bag. And so she had kind of let him out of the car so that he could walk around to the front door. And she thought that the car was in park. And so when she let her foot off of the brake, it lurched forward. Well, then she went into shock, right? And so then
Oh,
when you're in shock like that, every movement after is exaggerated. So she had slammed into her back garage wall, freaked out, put it in reverse, gunned it across the street into my house. Now she's like in a house, and then she puts it back in drive and flies back across the street. So they did a cause and origin on the car because she blamed the Nissan Altima. So that took like months. But Nissan came back and said, no, the car's fine. So, you know, ultimately it was just her not knowing how to drive, I guess. Like
yowza.
she wasn't like cognizant enough, or she was careless when she took her foot off the um, brakes thinking it was in park, and that's kind of what set off the whole domino effect. But it was over $600,000 worth of damage to townhomes. Yeah.
Wow. And so how long before you realized how close you were to being hit, of you jumping out of the way?
I mean, at the time, the police and the fire department, whenever they're there and they're like examining the scene and trying to ask me like where I was and how all this went down, they were like, if you wouldn't have got up off of that couch, you would have died instantly. And at the time, I just was like, you, when you don't know God, you don't like give
Right.
credit. I
Yep.
just kind of wrote it off like, well, guess I'm glad I got up off the couch. Her bumper was in my living room and tire marks. And the cops, I'll never forget, this one police officer was like, well, I don't think you'll have a problem proving there was a car in your house. Like, it was crazy. But again, you're just, I don't know. Like, it's crazy when I think back that I survived that right now, knowing what I know now, and that God was like with me. so many
Yeah.
times in my life. Like, I made a lot of bad choices in my life, driving drunk with friends, partying, just there's so many bad choices that I have made in my
Yeah.
life. Just being irresponsible and being a kid with no guidance or direction, just
Yeah.
winging it.
So I have a couple questions, but first I
Yeah.
wanted to just to get your thoughts. So you,
Yeah.
during that time of instability and anger because of the things that happened in with your story with your mom and everything, you had the two younger, much younger siblings that you said that you were kind of taking care of. How did they, once you went off on your own, how did they kind of maneuver their way?
Well, so they were so young that they don't have the same memories. You know what I
Okay.
mean? So my brother has different memories. He's 2 years older. His memories sort of align with mine more so. Um, as a girl, so my brother, was 2 years older, so he wasn't really around my mom much. He had already kind of sought independence and, was hanging with his friends, right? So I
Mhm.
had kind of that unique view of my mom, right? Because I was at such a
Mhm.
critical age where my sisters, one of them was still in diapers. So
Uh-huh.
so they don't even like remember all of that, which is
Mhm.
great for them.
Right.
That's great that they don't remember that. And it wasn't until years later, like these last like probably like 3 or 4 years ago that me and those two sisters kind of have gotten back together to reconcile and kind of restore a little bit of that and to compare notes, right? Because
Oh, interesting.
yeah, because I was ready to get the heck out of Dodge, right? I was so young. I didn't care about them, right? When I
Mhm.
once I hit 16 and I was able to get my own driver's license, get my own car, I was like, "Yo, peace out. They're not my
Yep.
kids."
Yeah.
I raised them for the last couple years. I was ready to escape that life. But they were so young that they ended up staying with my mom. Like during the divorce, where you have to like pick a parent or whatever.
Right.
They were so young, they just wanted mommy.
Mhm.
They didn't know and understand everything that had gone on, and it wasn't
Of
until years
course.
later that I was like, y'all are too young to like know why I have such resentment for mom.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, there were so many crazy things that happened even with my sisters because of all of that trauma that they didn't even recognize had an impact on them. Like one of them got really into drugs and almost lost her baby from CPS that I almost took custody of back I don't know, about 10 years ago almost. I almost took custody of her son because she got in trouble with drugs and her boyfriend and all the stuff. The other sister got her first kid taken away because
Wow.
she moved. She was a military wife and got divorced and moved to Hawaii and broke custody orders. Like just family trauma on family trauma. My brother, who's 2 years older, got in a car with a drunk driver. The summer after his senior year, he was set to go play college basketball on a scholarship. Got in a car with a drunk driver. Now he's paralyzed from the waist down. He's a paraplegic, diagnosed as quadriplegic. So yeah, all that happened when I was like
You are
in high
kidding
school.
me.
That's why I
Wow.
just wanted to escape it all. I just was like, I got to get away from all of this. So my brother,
Wow.
the relationship with my brother still struggled because, which I'm sure when something traumatic like that happens, you kind of stop growing emotionally and spiritually, right? So my brother,
Yep.
when that happened to him, he kind of stopped growing, right? And
Mhm.
so ever since then, he's lived off the government. He loves Obama, he
Mhm.
loves Biden. He lives that entitled handout lifestyle.
Right.
He never got a job. He never, he bounces around. Lives on Section 8 housing. The whole deal. My
Wow.
sisters are good now. They both have great lives. They're both married. They got kids. They, recovered and growing their faith, I would say. But there's been a
Mhm.
lot of restoration there.
Mhm.
My mom is still alive. I haven't talked to her since I was 18. I've
Oh.
I know she had a brain aneurysm about maybe 9 or 10 years ago, and my aunt convinced me to go to the hospital to say my goodbye for like closure or whatever. And then she didn't die. And I was like, now she thinks, I was like, now she thinks I care, and but I've since, with God revealing himself to me and healing me and redeeming me and delivered me from it all. I've forgiven my mom. I don't yet, maybe God will put it in my heart sometime, but I don't yet desire a relationship with her because
Mhm.
she lives like in a weird kind of alternative situation with her husband, who is Mike and used to cross dress as Michelle. like like girl, when I say I got stories,
No,
god's given me some stories. So
yeah. That's why
yeah.
I always it's so amazing why people who say yes to this, and it's the ones
Yeah.
who just who have this incredible journey,
Yeah.
and you have had an incredible journey in your young life. So, but first, I just out of curiosity, are your sisters in touch with your mom?
Yes. One of them is her caretaker because my mom, ever since
Oh,
she had her brain aneurysm, she's kind of wheelchair confined, and she's degrading pretty quickly. And so the older of the two younger sisters of mine lives there with her and takes care of her,
mhm,
helps to take care of her, and all of that. The other sister lives in Oklahoma and visits her and has a good relationship with her. They were always team mom. I was always team dad, right?
right.
Because of our personal experiences. And they didn't
Yeah,
understand that for years until I kind of explained to them. I'm like, I raised you guys for 2 years. Like, I was changing your diapers, I was feeding you, I was fixing your hair, but they have no memory of that,
you're
which is
right.
great for
Yeah,
them. Like, I
yeah,
I don't want them to remember that, so
yeah. Wow. And then, so you said that after the car, the lady in the car hit your townhouse in Chicago, that you had to move in with your boss, whose last name Godby, whatever you said it was, and
yes.
was a big important part. So to me, it sounds like that was part of your story that had to happen.
Yep,
So how
absolutely.
was she such a big part?
So I met her at work when I still worked in Texas, and she started out as an enemy because she was
Oh.
so annoyingly happy. Okay. She was just that annoying, happy person that I called fake, right? I was like, no one's that happy. She's fake, right?
Mhm.
Uh, so started out as an enemy. Then she turned frenemy because now we ended up on the same team together. I'm like, ugh, now I got to work with this fake whatever person. So now she's my frenemy. But then we kind of became like friends because I was like, okay, she's really good at her job, right? And she liked the way my style of work. So then we started working together. So now she's my boss. And we worked really well together. She was sales and I was operation, and we just kind of like it just worked. And
Mhm.
but I still thought she was annoyingly happy, right?
Mhm.
And when she got a promotion to move to Chicago, she came to me and was like, "Hey, I got a job opportunity. You want to go to Chicago?" And our boss above us was like, "Yeah, y'all can be a team. You can go and build your own team up in Chicago." And we were like, "Why not?" We had nothing. Like, I had no ties to Texas. Like,
Mhm.
I was single, young, and hungry for money, right?
Mhm.
And so now she's my boss, and we moved to Chicago together, and we had a great time together partying. And
Yeah.
she was always so good. She was just good. She was good to me. She was good to everyone I saw her interact with. I was like, gosh, she's just so good. Like she had a different kind of patience than I'd ever seen people. She cared about her employees. She was so generous. She was like all of these wonderful things. Everybody loved her. And so we
Mhm.
had nicknames for each other. She called me my Audrey, and I called her my God bee because I was like, it's my God bee. Like, she's mine. Like, I loved her so much because she gave me all these opportunities. right?
Mhm.
She's a great boss, great mentor. And she was just, everybody loved her. And she just, she was my God bee, right? And so then
Yeah.
when I had to figure out where I was going to live, she had a 2-bedroom apartment. She's like, just stay with me. And I'm like, are you sure? We were working together. And so there I was living with her, and she let me borrow her clothes. And she like, she was just so good to me. And then when she moved back to Texas, I was real bummed because we were going to buy a condo together downtown Chicago to have our little party pad on the weekends. But then she was moving back to Texas. And I was like, well, now what? My God, we left, Well, then she gets back to Texas. And then a few weeks later, she messaged me, hey, I'm back in Texas and I got a job for you if you want to move back to Texas. And it was after I moved back into my townhome. It was basically, they almost condemned it, but they repaired it. And I could never be comfortable there because, I thought the lady was going to crash into my house again.
Yeah, I wonder
So,
why. Yeah.
yeah. And so my landlords that I was renting from were super, super nice, and they understood. And I was like, I got to go home. I got to get out of
Yeah.
here. So I moved back to Texas to work with my Godby. Same thing, reliving old times, great opportunity. She saved me again, right? And why God knew, right? This is what ties it all together. Is when I did have my encounter with him 4.5 years ago, she was the first person that I called because I was like,
Oh.
because she was the only Christian that she never forced it on me. She never like judged. She just was good. And she's the only one that I knew that was a true Christian. And
Mhm.
she was it. And I texted her and I was like, my God, babe, I need to talk to you. And she's like, what's going on? Because we've always kept in contact and, kept in touch and everything. And she was like, yeah, what's going on? And I was like, well, I think it's about God. She was like ecstatic. Okay. It's like a Christian's dream, right? When someone you've been discipling on the down low for the last like 20 years finally calls you and wants to talk about God. So,
Yes!
and her name was Godby. My
Yeah,
God be.
you can't make that stuff up, come on.
That's incredible, huh?
Yeah, so I wanna keep going with that, but
Yeah.
before we do, so you married a wonderful man, obviously, and then you, at that point, then decided to have children, and that was a hard journey for you too as well?
Yeah. Yep. We met at work, so both super into work, and I was ready to have a baby, right? I was like, let's do this. And that was again my plan. God's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna make you work. I was like, come on, right? So that took four rounds of IVF and a lot of money. And that
Mhm.
was, 12 years ago. And it's crazy to look at now, how that's only been exasperated for people. Like my heart breaks to see how so many people can't have babies because of everything they've done
Yeah,
to us. All
right.
the poisons and all the stuff. And so that was tough. But when Tucker, his name's Tucker, when he was born, I mean, it changes your life, when you
Yeah.
bring another human into the world. But it wasn't until, I mean, 4.5 years ago that I started like wanting him to have a better foundation faith wise than I did. Um, and it was during the Great Awakening, right? That all this stuff started happening during COVID that I got him. I talked to my husband about like going to church and like, I just felt, God was like starting to nudge, but I didn't know it was God. You know what I mean? I didn't know. I just was like, I just wanted Tucker to have a better foundation than I did.
So
That's
what do
all that
you
I
think
knew.
Yeah, and so what do you think happened 4.5 years ago to start this journey?
Well, it was the election. It was COVID and the election, right? I was never into politics. Never into politics. Couldn't even really tell you what each side believed or didn't believe.
Mhm.
The Obama stuff, I wasn't happy about all that because I was like, who's this guy? Right. And that's when I started to like pay attention more. Right. And then it was COVID when nothing made sense. You know,
Mhm.
up was down, down was up. You could go to Walmart, but you couldn't go to the gym. You
Yeah.
could get an abortion, but you couldn't go to church. Like none of it made
Right.
sense. And that piqued my interest. And there were two doctors. I don't know if you remember these guys. They were the first doctors that I ever knew to be censored. It was before I even knew censorship was a thing. There were these two
Mhm.
doctors out of California that were um, one of those, what do you call them, like Care Now, like kind of doc in a box type places, those little pop up emergency
Yep.
centers. And they were
Yes.
talking about what they were seeing. They were just very honest. They were like, we're seeing it. It's kind of like a flu. And I remember sending that video around to friends, and then all of a sudden, a few friends couldn't access it. And I was like, what do you mean? And I went to click on it. I'm like, oh, it's deleted. How was it deleted? Couldn't find it anywhere. And I was like, what is happening? Like, that was my very first experience with censorship
Mhm.
and trying to explain to people you couldn't find that video anywhere. Like it was
Mhm.
scrubbed and gone. And I was like, that's weird.
Right.
And so that was, I think, my first kind of little light bulb to be like, what else are they lying about? And then
Mhm.
there you go, down all the rabbit holes. And then I went to J6. And
So did I.
yes, I think I saw on one of your posts that you were there. I didn't get to the Capitol. We were they had already kind of broken everything up and were enforcing the curfew by the time we were walking over there. But I saw Trump
Mhm.
speak. That's why we went, right? We were over in the ellipse
Mhm.
the whole time. So by the time we got over there, people were already coming back. But we saw the Antifa buses and we saw people changing into
Yeah.
Trump gear. And and so that
So
really, oh, go ahead.
so I was gonna say, so that accelerated things for you in a spiritual
Yes.
way? Okay, 'cause so
Yes.
Audrey, because this is what I think. I think that there were that yes, there was a lot of bad stuff that happened there, and,
Right.
I think some we're gonna know more truth about that, obviously. But I could feel there was so much goodness and godliness and love.
Oh
It was
yeah.
and even when I talked to Professor David Clemens, he said that after that he wasn't but after that event, he had a spiritual thing. 18 days after that, I had a spiritual thing.
Mhm.
Yours accelerated. So something happened there.
Well, it's a classic case of what God likes to do. He likes to take what the enemy meant for evil and turn it for good.
Yeah.
Because you're right. There was prayer circles I saw. There were
Mhm.
people singing worship
Yep,
songs. I was not expecting any of that. I had never been to a Trump rally. Um, and I was just like, this is incredible. Like the people that you meet, I didn't run into a single rude person. Every person I
no.
met you would just hug and you would share stories, and you saw so many groups just like coming together. Like it was a true unifying event, which is what God likes to do. He likes to take all these different groups of people and he likes to weave them together. You would see
Yep.
Hispanics for Trump, blacks for Trump, Vietnamese for Trump.
Yes.
We stayed at a hotel outside in Virginia um, that was 100% Korean, Vietnamese. Sorry, not Korean, Vietnamese. Because the girl that I went with, she had a friend that managed or kind of ran the Vietnamese for Trump office in New York. And so that was kind of our in to get a go at the last minute because they had reserved an entire hotel, like not just a block of rooms, an entire hotel, 100% Vietnamese. It was
Wow.
amazing. They were so cute. All these ladies were like dressed in their traditional Vietnamese gowns, but they were patriotic, right?
Yep.
They had like live cutouts of Trump. They had like prayer circles going. Like it was incredible. Like it was a
Yeah,
true unifying moment. And to your point
indeed.
about something special, I think that God took that and he's like, I
Mhm.
see some nefarious stuff going on. I'm going to hijack this and I'm going to give different people different
Yes.
experiences for his own glory.
How cool
Absolutely.
is that? I'm
It's so
serious, that's just so cool, so cool. So
yeah.
so after that, things accelerated, and then did that start to what started you on this path of you
Yeah.
wanting to share all
So
this?
yep. So I was the crazy conspiracy theorist, right? I was all the labels. I was a domestic terrorist because I was going to school board meetings to fight the masks. I was yelling at my kids' teachers for trying to make them wear a mask. I had pulled them from public
Yeah.
school. I was doing all the things, right? And then I get back from J6 and I saw just how fake the news really was. Like,
Yeah.
you hear fake news and you understand it until you actually personally witness it, right? To
Yeah.
see J6 and then to see what they did on the TV,
Mhm.
that was next level for me. And
Yeah.
trying to tell my friends just how fake the news is. And there's like, whatever, you're a Trump lover, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I saw it with my own eyes. So they were
Yes.
they kept deleting pictures that I would post on Instagram from J6. And they were just selfies, like, girl selfies with our friends, but they had the geofencing. They knew the location and they didn't want, and I was like, they're
That's nuts.
deleting selfies. And my friends were like, well, they should. You're an insurrectionist. And I'm like, were you there? Were you there? Like, it was incredible just to witness the level of programming, right? That I would tell my
Absolutely.
close friends, I was like, I was
Yep.
there. This is not what it was, right? So that was really the catalyst, the ultimate catalyst for me, because I was like, they are lying about so many things. It wasn't
So
just
many.
COVID. Like,
Mhm.
it wasn't just COVID. They stole the election. That, I was like, I can't believe they're doing this. And then I was like, they're not going to certify it. And then they certify it. And I was like, what is happening? Like, really, what
Mhm.
is happening? And then I'm like, well, now I want to know what this QAnon stuff is all about,
Yeah.
because that was the big thing that they were smearing and,
Right.
lying. Or I didn't know they were lying then. I just was like, well, wait a minute. They stole the election. COVID was a lie. They're fake news. All these other things don't make sense. Now I want to know what this QAnon stuff is all about, because
Exactly.
that was the next hot thing. And so there I go down all the whole rabbit holes and all the Q stuff. And I see some of the biblical things in Q, and I was like, what is going on? Like, what is this? And I'm trying to like tell people about it. We were all there, right? Where you try to tell people. I'm
Mhm.
like, there's no QAnon. There's Q, and you can go see these, saying all the same things. And now my
Yes.
labels just keep increasing. I'm an insurrectionist. I'm a right wing extremist. I'm a deplorable. Now I'm a QAnoner.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's all the things, and friends just kept dropping. So I had no friends left basically, and my husband hated me, because I was all the things,
Right. Yeah.
and it was real bad. Um, I mean, it was like the textbook definition of who our movement is. I was all
Yes.
of those things. And
Mhm.
it was one night, August 27th of 2021, there was a period of a few weeks where some too many coincidences were happening, that were personal coincidences, that I was like, something else is going on. Like, now part of me was like, am I crazy? Right? Because you're being gaslit. I was
Mhm.
gaslit by everyone around me. My son brings home a picture of some abstract art of a white rabbit. And I'm like, my kid's a sports kid. He doesn't do art, much less abstract art, much less a white rabbit. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why did you draw a white rabbit? And he was like, I don't know. Like, he had no
Oh my
idea.
gosh.
I mean, he was like 8 years old at the time. And I'm like, what is happening? And I just
Yeah.
started I felt this like weird thing. I don't know.
Mhm.
I didn't know God yet. And so there I am Googling, like, to try to understand what I'm feeling. And I come across these dreaded words that I used to mock, spiritual awakening. And I'm like, ugh. Because I used to mock this kind of stuff. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, something's happening here. And then I'm looking at all these checklists and I'm like, okay. So I go to like try to talk to my husband about it. It's a great big fail, because add one more thing to the list of crazy,
Right.
and I lose it and I start crying uncontrollably. I wasn't a big crier. And I was like, this is it. my life is over. Like, I'm going to the loony bin. This is, I don't know what's happening. I was just crying uncontrollably because my husband, of all people, because I just laid it all out there. Super raw and vulnerable for the first time, sadly, admitting that. But, we were always surface level. And now I'm
Mhm.
just like, something's happening. I think it's God. Like, that's all that I knew. Process of elimination, God. And it was ugly, and I couldn't stop crying. And I entered into a place in my head where I couldn't control myself. For the first time ever in my life, in my head, I was like, you have to stop crying or something bad is about to happen, because I
Mhm.
had this feeling in my head that I had never experienced. So it was a new experience. And I was like, you got to pull it together, because I don't know what's about to happen. You're going to pass out or die or something. I don't know. So I had like a little inner voice that said, just breathe. And I was
Mhm.
like, took a deep breath, and I exhaled, and I heard an audible voice that said, don't give up. I need people like you in this world.
Wow.
Audible. Like, if you were here in this room, you would have heard it. I am convinced.
Wow.
And I turned to try to see if my husband's there, and he had left to go to the other room. And I was like, I'm crazy. I've reached the pinnacle of crazy. I'm now hearing voices. It didn't hit me, what was actually happening. I just felt completely insane. And I was like,
Mhm.
I got to go to sleep. So I went to sleep. Uh, I don't know how, but I did. I guess exhausted from crying. The next day I woke
Mhm.
up and I was lighter. Like, I just felt like light. And I was like thinking to myself, you shouldn't feel this way. Like, your life is over. You're going to get divorced. You're going to lose your kid. You have no friends. You are alone. You're done. You probably need to drive yourself to the loony bin today. And I was like, I just felt like just lights a little bit. And I was like, what is going on? And I was in the mirror brushing my teeth, and I was smiling at myself in the mirror. I'm like, you're crazy. Like, you're crazy. This is what crazy feels like. Like, it was a new feeling. And I was like, because when you're gaslit for 4.5 years, and then you hear voices, like you're crazy. And all of a sudden I
Mhm.
paused, and I just looked up, and I was like, wait, God? And that's when it happened. A physical, like, jolt, like not a painful, but like, if I could imagine being like shocked in the best way. And then my whole body just was like flooded with a goodness that I didn't even know existed. Like, it still blows my mind to think about that experience, and just flooded with goodness, just this overwhelmingly feeling of love. And and then a movie reel, God played a movie reel in my head of my entire life, where he revealed the truth of my life. So he took me back to when I was abandoned at a young age, and showed me that I wasn't abandoned, that my mom just did the best that she could. She didn't know the Lord, and that I was chosen. I was always chosen, and that I was worthy. And he showed me every place in my life of a traumatic moment and where he was. So it was the
Wow.
truth. Like, he literally revealed the truth, because all those years, the trauma, the enemy will take your unhealed wounds, and he'll weaponize them against you to tell you,
Yep.
so that you believe lies, right? That you're not worthy, that you're not good enough, that you're loud, that you're this, you're that. And then you live your life believing lies, and you make
Right.
life decisions and choices based on those lies, because you think that they're true.
Right.
But But God was like, no, no, that was all lies. Here's the truth of your entire life. It didn't become the truth. It was always the truth. So
Mhm.
he rewrote my history, right? He
Mhm.
showed me his story, history,
Yes.
and
Yes.
showed me the truth of who I always was before I was even born. He showed it all to me in that movie reel, and I was like, oh, and I'm just like crying uncontrollably, because it's different now, and I was different. It was like a switch inside of me that I could not have done myself.
Mhm.
I didn't deserve it at all. I did not deserve it. I still don't deserve it. That experience, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And the first person I thought to call was my God.
Mhm.
And the next day I went to her house, sat on her couch with her husband, who come to find out had been doing deliverance work for the last 15 years.
Wow.
They were explaining all of this, and I was like, "But why me? I don't deserve this. I'm like, I don't deserve this. Like, there are good people in this world that deserve this. Like, why me? Why me? What did I do?" They're like, "Nothing. This is just what God does. You can't earn this." And I was like, I, I'm His. Whatever I need to do, I'll do it. Like,
Yeah.
I can never ever repay Him, but I will spend the rest of my life trying. and,
Yes.
and it rocked my world. And I didn't know how permanent it was. So I was scared in a way to lose that feeling, right? So in the very
Mhm.
beginning, I reacted very poorly to situations because I was like, you will, with my husband and my family and friends trying to explain this. I was crazy, because I already had all
Right.
these other labels. There was already a
Right.
pattern of crazy. And now I'm
Yep.
trying to say that I heard from God and that He revealed the truth to me in a moment. Like, that's crazy.
Yes. Right.
And so I mean, we almost got divorced. Um, Divorce papers were delivered to my house, but I didn't answer the door. Um, I mean, completely turned my life upside down, right? Because that was the pinnacle,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
We got to the very end of it, and inner emotional counseling so that I could understand, unpack all my trauma. I was always an open book. I never was like embarrassed to talk about my past or anything. All my friends understood my past and everything, but I never understood the impact
Yeah.
that it really had on me, right? I
Absolutely.
truly thought that I was responsible for all the successes in my life. I thought I did
Mhm.
it all, that I didn't have a support system, that I worked hard. And God said, "You didn't do nothing. It was all me, always all me." So pride he just wrecked it, right?
Yep. Yeah.
and and ever since then, I just have been more on fire than
Yay, I
I'm
love it.
soul on fire. And he's, never stopped talking. There was only one other time that I heard an audible like that. But other than that, it's just like he reveals things to me, gives me things to say. And it's just been this progression over the last 4 years. We started this thing talking about saying yes. Um, the more I learned, the more I said yes, the more he'll give you, right? The
Mhm.
more you're willing to go all in for Jesus, the more he will reveal. There's
Absolutely.
The sanctification process has been incredible to like witness it and to live it. Um,
Mhm.
he in an instant changed my heart posture, but there
Yep.
were things that he continues to work on.
Sure.
Right? Like day one, the empathy and all these different patience and kindness and understanding wasn't there, right? That's that sanctification process that happens over time, and it never ends. But I mean, it's my own road to Damascus. People that know the story of when Saul became Paul, it's more than just Paul changing his mind. Paul didn't change his mind, or Saul didn't change his mind. God changed Saul into Paul. It is a supernatural, super but natural
Yep.
experience,
That's
like where
right.
he revealed himself completely, right? He revealed the truth of my life and the truth of the world, and now I see things very, very
Yes.
differently. And I couldn't have done that on my own. You cannot do that on your
No.
own. You can't.
Right. Right. And everything in everyone's life leading up to everything has to happen just as it has to
Yes.
happen. And I love that story because too, I was on a journey where I was really diving into people who've had near death experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And, um, that sounded very much like it, that you got that without having to have a near-death experience, but you had the same type of thing. How cool is that?
Oh gosh. And it's why I'm as radical as I am, right? Like, I can't tell you how many times people are like, what is going on with you? And I'm like, God, I didn't know him for over 40 years of my life. And he gave
Yeah,
me this incredible supernatural experience that I know not many people get. I used to think it was normal. Like, once I knew the truth, and I was like, oh, I get it now, right? And so I go to church expecting to like meet people like me. I start to talk to other Christians, and I'm like, what's wrong with y'all? Like, because I thought it was normal. Like, I thought once you know
yeah,
the truth, this is what it is.
right,
And it took a long time, and even still to this day, I'm like, okay, yeah, they're not walking in the spirit. Like, they don't, God hasn't fully revealed himself, or they haven't said yes
right,
enough. Or I'm always like trying to figure out what it is about people that they don't want to walk in the spirit, you know? It's because
yeah,
of all the distractions, right? The world, the
that's
red
right,
pill. There are
right,
so
right,
many distractions that keep us from that direct connection with God. But that's why he gave me the experience. When he said, don't give up, that was part of it, right? Because I was
mhm,
spiraling, and I was, that was part of it. Don't give up. But then the other part was, I need people like you in this world. And I'll tell you, I struggled with that for a long time because I didn't know what like you meant. I was like,
mhm.
what does he mean, like you? Right. I immediately I took offense. Right.
Yeah.
What does that mean, like you? Broken, this, that, all these things, you know? And then he, as you know, God just continues to reveal layers. And I was like you means multiple things, right? It means willing to say yes, right? Willing to be obedient even when it's not popular and not desirable, right?
Mhm,
And willing to take what the enemy used to use for bad, which is my mouth. I had a little rebel mouth about me, and God's like, no, I'm going to use your mouth for good, right? Um,
exactly,
and like you, I think also means people that I give an experience to, like this, like you,
that's right,
people that are
right,
willing to walk in the spirit like you, right? So
right,
it's he just continues to kind of reveal those layers to me. But it's why, without that experience, like, God knew that I was kind of a skeptic and a little bit of a rebel
mhm,
and
mhm,
needed proof of things, right? Because all my
right,
life I had people try to tell me about God and Jesus, and I was agnostic. I was all the things.
right,
And so God knew. He's like, yeah, I know. I know you're a little rebel. I know you think you know everything. But he
yeah,
knew that he would have to give me an undeniable experience so
exactly.
that I would tell the world about
Exactly. And so I think, I'm listening to you and my head's just going a million
it.
ways because I think that there are people like you and a lot of us that are understand that and are feeling that and are knowing that, and we're each in our own doing our own thing. You with your Substacks, I'm doing my podcast, and
Yeah.
so many other people are doing so many other things because whether they hear us now, they won't, but we are going to help as
Yes.
this whole awakening
They're
explodes,
seeds, right? They're
proceeds.
they're seeds. These are seeds that
There
we're giving, right?
we're planting seeds exactly, and just like to your point, Audrey, if someone told you this, you would be like, "Oh, that's ridiculous." If someone told we had to experience it just like as it's happening now in the pause, right? Or was the
Yeah.
pause, but during Biden. Is that people had to see it. You couldn't tell them. Like, your family couldn't hear you, my family couldn't hear me, but they have to see it but we are planting the seeds to your point,
Yeah.
so that at least when things get more revealed, they will have the seeds planted so
Right.
that they're gonna be able to lift up those blindfolds easier, I think, and then have
Yeah.
us come in to help them with the glory of God as well.
Yes.
How
Yeah,
cool
because
is
God's
that?
given us all these unique skills, attributes, and experiences, because what what works for Bob may not work for Jan, right?
Yeah,
So like I am not for everybody, right?
right.
Some people are like, rah, rah, and then other people are like, tell me more, right? So because
Yep.
God knows, He already has it all planned out, right? And so He already knows
Yes.
what each person is going to need, and He knows how to get them what they need. So
That's
he's
right.
like, I'm going to give this person this experience, I'm going to give Audrey
Yep.
this experience, and then they're going to weave it all together, they're going to film podcasts and document it for other people, and then
Yes.
he'll take all of that and use it for
Yes.
his will, right? That's that ripple effect. And that's why I'm just like so grateful. Like they're so, I mean, I like every day I'm just like humbled, like overwhelmingly humbled, because I'm like, oh my
Me
gosh, God,
too.
why me? Like, why did you
That's
pick
right.
me to do this? And how I don't
Right.
deserve it. And I continue to screw up and I still make mistakes, right? Because of that whole sanctification process. There's no condemnation in Christ, but I still want to be different, right? Like
Right.
that's why I try to explain to non-believers about my experience. I'm like, I get you. Trust me. I get you. I was
Yeah.
there for over 40 years, right?
Right.
But when God does it, you
Yeah.
can't deny it.
No.
You can't. And so that's what I always like try to explain to people. I'm like, I promise you one day God is going to rock your world and you are
That's
going
right.
to be forever changed.
Yes, it's coming. And whether it's somebody who plants the seed to their neighbor or
Right.
plants a seed on a chat or I mean, every single person is doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing
Right.
as things become more revealed in this great awakening. It's such the whole thing, and I think that's why you are so grateful every day. I'm feeling so grateful every day because not just that we're here, but that we can see and we know, the glory of what we're doing and what will be coming, and it's just the most unbelievably incredible time to
It's
be here.
delicious, right? I used to tell people
Yeah.
it's more delicious than liberal tears.
Yeah.
But I've since kind of God kind of convicted me a little bit of that one, so I don't use that one as much, right? Because I do try to like be a little more empathetic and to the
Yeah,
process and all
I
of
know.
that. But it's just so delicious. Someone can tell you that honey is sweet, and you would believe them because of what we know about honey, right?
Right.
But when you taste the honey and you
Y
taste just how sweet it is, you're like, "Oh, it is sweet."
Yep.
It's that same thing. And so I one of the things that God is always continuously working on me on multiple things, of course, but like
Mhm.
patience, because I apply logic to a lot of things, and there's been so much revealed, just when you look at like from the sea scrolls to the multiple copies of the New Testament to all these archaeological finds. Like I just saw one the other day about them finding wheels in the Red Sea. Like there continues to be more and more revealed, and
Yep.
just logically I'm like, people, what are you like? So it's like patience, right? Because there's plenty of people
Yeah.
that say that they believe in God or they believe in Jesus. I'm like, but do you know him? You got to know
Right.
him. You have to
Right.
know him, and you're missing out. You're missing out on such goodness in your life. Like God is in the details. He is in everything. And when you can see those details and track the breadcrumbs of your life, it will lead you to the ultimate bread of life. And I want it so bad for people, and
Yep.
so God's always telling me, I know. So keep doing what I tell you to do, but the heavy lifting is on me, right? Grace, remember mercy with people, and so I'm constantly being like, okay. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
gotta constantly kind of like calibrate yourself and to remember that it's not our jobs to change hearts, it's
Mhm.
God's. But
Right.
I want to do it. I want to do what he wants me to do, and I want people to experience the healing. I don't want people to experience the hurt.
Mhm.
I've been there and I've done that, but there's a way out. There's this whole
Mhm.
life that awaits.
Yes. And this is what's so great, Audrey. So, I think what's coming too is there's gonna have to be some massive type of thing that everybody's getting on the same page, some big event, I don't know, but what's gonna happen is to circle back to our first thing we talked about, people are gonna have to take the red pill and the green pill.
Right.
Hopefully, it'll be around Christmas, red and green, yay! But it is gonna have to be that combination, and I'm thrilled. I'm always so thrilled and excited to think, "What's gonna happen today? What are we gonna find out
I
today? How's
know.
it gonna go today?" Because we don't know this divine plan that's been so beautifully orchestrated, and so it's just an amazing time, and I can't thank you enough for,
Yeah.
gosh, spending time with me and with the audience that will love this, hearing from you. I'm gonna put your Substack up there one more
Yeah.
time because, reading what you write, it's I can feel where it's coming from. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so well written, and it's just so eye-opening.
Yeah.
Um, it's so lovely, and so, you're definitely planting seeds there, Audrey, so much.
Yeah,
So,
God does this thing where he like reveals parts of it, and I like to let him weave it all together. Like
yeah,
I didn't, you know, traditional sermon preacher type stuff doesn't resonate with me. But when you weave in like how 5G warfare works with like the propaganda and the programming and then the science, like I think that the
yeah,
truth has just been fragmented, right? By design,
yes,
right? Because
correct.
the new agers have so much of it right. Like
Mhm,
with the vibrations and the frequencies stuff, that's all intelligently designed. That's how God
yeah,
designed us, right? But they leave out
right,
Jesus as the savior. They leave out
right,
repentance, right? The church doesn't like to consider all these other pieces,
that's
right?
right.
The world applies like a mental aspect and not a heart
Mhm,
aspect. So a lot of heart
that's right.
knowledge, but no, a lot of head knowledge, sorry, and no heart knowledge. So it's like the
Right,
truth has just been fragmented. And so I like to
totally,
ask God, put it all together, right? To create this like
right.
logical kind of piece. And like the green pill, you say people need to take the green pill. I like to look at it the other way around, that we need to, as believers, offer up green pills, right? Give away the free samples.
Yes, I like
That's the
that.
dose, right? Just like they give red pill doses. And we should have
That's right,
learned now, we know that forcing the red pill wasn't always the best strategy,
right.
right? So we learned that about the red pill, and we need to remember, okay, I know it didn't work with the red pill. So let me do it
Mhm,
differently with the green pill, because the red pill
exactly.
comes with force, with
Yep,
deception, a lot of times with pride, ego, anger, all the worldly traits. The green pill comes with empathy and understanding and
mhm,
kindness and generosity and understanding
yeah,
and grace and mercy. And if we can just look at all the wounded people, all the people that are maxed out, OD'd on their red pill, and recognize they just need love. At the end of the
that's right.
day, they just need love.
Absolutely. I can't thank you enough. This has been so
Of course.
fantastic. You're just so
Yeah.
wonderful. And I hope we can talk again at some point
Yes.
because those green pills are going to be needed more and more and more. And I would love to talk again. But thank you, Audrey,
Absolutely.
so
Yes.
much for spending time and for telling your story. And what a gift. And you're just such a wonderful, wonderful soul. So
Well,
thank
it's
you for
all
being with
him,
me.
right? I'm just the willing vessel, but I really, really appreciate and grateful. Anytime I get to come on a podcast and glorify God, I'm gonna say yes. So anytime
Yay.
you want to get together and just chat, even if it's offline and not being recorded, just talk about God and what He's doing. I'm
I would love it. I would
I'm
love
here.
it. Thank you so much and have a great night. Thank you for sharing your evening with me.
Thank you too, Ellen. Bye. Have a great night.
Okay. Bye.